Welcome to Baby Boomer Tales. My name's Jim. It's almost the 4th of July. It's hot out here in northeastern Kansas. We're going to have fireworks, a big old birthday party, 249th birthday for the United States of America. Happy birthday to you. Now for the top 10 in 1964. That's the top 10 popular songs for the year 1964. Number 10, Where Did Our Love Go? The Supremes. Number 9, Louie Louie by the Kingsmen. Number 8, My Guy, Mary Wells. Number 7, Everybody Loves Somebody, Dean Martin. Number 6, by the Beatles, A Hard Day's Night. Number 5, Oh Pretty Woman, Roy Orbison. Number 4, I Get Around, the Beach Boys. Number 3, by the Beatles again, She Loves You. Number 2, by the Beatles, I Want to Hold Your Hand. And the number 1 song for the year 1964 by Louis Armstrong, Hello Dolly. Well, hello Dolly. What a great song. Louis beat out the Beatles in '64. The Beatles came into the United States like a locomotion. Do the locomotion. No, they didn't do that song. When I was a kid, a nickel or a dime would buy quite a lot. Just off the top of my head here, I remember a few things that a nickel or a dime would buy. A phone call from a payphone. I don't remember a nickel on that one. I just remember dimes. Just put a dime into the little thing and you hear some clicks and all of a sudden you get a dial tone. You can dial your local number. Now you didn't need to put a dime in there to call the operator, I don't think. And then you could make a long distance call, but you'd have to put, 35 cents or something in there, unless it was collect. Hello, you have a collect call from Mom, come pick me up real quick at the bowling alley. Jim, something like that, remember that? A Coke was a nickel. I remember soft drinks were a nickel. And the way I remembered this, in probably the early 1960s, all of a sudden Pepsi made a big splash. It had been around a while, but it made a big splash, and their bottles were twice as big. They're 12 ounce instead of 6 ounce. And they were a dime. Well, it didn't take very long, maybe a couple years, and Cokes went up to a dime, and all soda pop was a dime a bottle then. Glass bottle. 2 or 3 cent deposit on the bottle, but you take the bottle back and get a refund, You could go around places and pick up pop bottles and make a little spare change there. Baseball cards were a nickel. I loved buying a baseball card, or a little pack of baseball cards, probably 6 or 7 cards in this package with a flat stick of stale old bubble gum. That was greatest gum in the world to go along with my Bob Gibsons, Red Shandies, Willie Mays, those guys. Maybe if you got lucky you'd get one of them in your baseball card package. Candy bars were a nickel. Oh, I loved candy bars. I loved those Snickers, and I loved Heath bars, and I loved Butterfingers a lot. But my favorite one was Cherry Mash. It was kind of a round candy bar. It wasn't like oblong. And it was the greatest. I still like those, but they're so hard to find. You can find them in a hardware store here or there. And I know that the grocery store carries a bunch of mini ones in a bag, like for Halloween treats or something. But I want the old original Cherry Mash. All these candy bars are now $1 or more. Isn't that amazing? 5-cent candy bars became a dime. It was devastating. For a dime, you used to be able to buy a candy bar and a pop. I'll always call it pop. I hear there's a movement afoot to call it soda anymore. But a soda is what you get at a soda fountain with ice cream, you know, carbonated water, whatever they do with it. The current dime, the ones, if you get a dime and some change or something, it has a picture of FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, on the head side and an olive branch on the tail side. It was first introduced in 1946, and that's the same dime we have today. Preceding the FDR dime was a Mercury dime. Remember that? Mercury dime had that guy with the wings on his head. Actually, it's the goddess Liberty, apparently, and an olive branch on the tail side. It was made out of 90% silver. Before the Mercury dime that was introduced in 1916 and ran until 1946, the Barber dime, 1892 through 1916, had Lady Liberty on the head side and a wreath on the tail side, and it shared that same design besides the dime on a $1.50. When I read that yesterday, when I was putting this all together, I remembered the $50. Do you remember the $50 coin? I'd almost forgotten clean about that coin. Didn't the latest ones, before they probably were phased out, I don't know if they still make them, had JFK on them? I think so. I'm not positive. In 1965, dimes went from 90% silver to 75% copper and 25% nickel. So your dime is not silver anymore, unless you have one of the old ones, older than 65. The first dime, the DISME, D-I-S-M-E, started in 1792. It was 1/10 the silver weight of a silver dollar, henceforth 10 cents. 1/10 of silver in weight. That is amazing that they thought that stuff out. But anymore, everything's copper or nickel. Can you get a dime anymore? I don't even carry any change. We got this great idea to start putting all of our change in this big old jar, and we haven't even covered the bottom of it yet. We just started a month ago, but neither one of us really handles cash. I get a little cash when I go on vacation, just in case. But everything I either pay with my phone or a card, you know. But I like cash, and I am not for going to a cashless society. That's my stand. That's about as political as I'm going to get here. Let's see here. Let's talk about some prices of things, because things have gotten more expensive, obviously, as time went on. So I'm going to visit the 50s, the early 1950s. I was born in 1950. So let's just start there. 1950, a stamp cost 3 cents. Now, I don't know how much a stamp costs today, because the last stamps I bought a roll of them years ago, I bet 10 years ago, and I have not used that roll yet. I'm getting a little low, and I hear they're quite expensive. I didn't look it up, but I think they're over 60 cents now for a stamp. I may be wrong on that, but I know they're a lot more than 3 cents. Sirloin steak in 1950 cost 77 cents a pound. 1951, gas was 20 cents a gallon. And a 6-pack of Coke, this is 51, 37 cents. So a 6-pack at a nickel, which I remember, was 30 cents. So I must not remember Cokes at a nickel. I must have remembered them at 6 or 7 cents. In my head, though, it was a nickel. 1952, men's t-shirts or briefs. You know, your whitey-tidies back then. 2 for 59 cents. Bread was 16 cents a loaf. In 1953, 10 pounds of sugar was 89 cents. And the average income in America was $4,011 a year. 1954, T-bone steak, 95 cents a pound. A box of grape nuts, 10-ounce box, cost 19 cents. Grape nuts cereal, you know. 1955, coffee was 93 cents a pound. Potatoes, A 10-pound bag of russet potatoes, 53 cents. So in 1954, $1 is equal to $11.41 today. That's 1954. So if coffee cost 93 cents a pound back then, that's equal to $10.61 a pound today. Now, I just bought 43.5 ounces of Folgers for $14.68. At $10.61 a pound, that'd be $28.71 for basically 3 pounds of coffee. Not quite 3 pounds. So your dollar goes further today than it did back then. The potatoes at 53 cents for 10 pounds. In today's money, that costs $6.05 for 10 pounds. I just looked on the Walmart webpage and they are $5.64 for 10 pounds. So that's not as big a discrepancy, but your dollar actually goes further today on those two items. I'm not going to break everything down. I'm not trying to do that or anything. The income of 1953 of $4,011 a year in today's dollars would be $47,203. The average income of 2025 is $61,984. So we do not have it as bad as maybe we think we do when we're paying, $3 a gallon for gas, or $4 a gallon for milk, or even $4 a dozen for eggs. Even though it sounds terrible and it just stresses you to the max, our dollar goes further on consumer goods than it did in the 50s. Now we have a lot more things pulling our dollar away from us. TV is an example. TV used to be all free until cable hit in the 70s or something. Pretty tough stuff, man. Pretty tough stuff. I hope I made sense on all this. It made sense yesterday when I wrote it all out, but when I started trying to follow my notes here, I got a little discombobulated. Is that a word? Now for another adventure of Forky and Earl. Forky and Earl were down at the drugstore, at the candy aisle, surveying what was for sale. Forky said, "How much you got, Earl?" Earl said, "I've got a dime, Forky. What do you have?" Forky said, "I've got a dime. I found it in the change return of the payphone out front." Earl said, "You're good at that, Forky." Forky said, "You do what you have to do, Earl." And Forky looked at Earl. Earl looked at the candy counter. And Earl said, "I'm going to buy some baseball cards. Forky, I can buy 2 packages. Forky said, "I'm going to buy 2 packages also, Earl. I hope I get Eddie Matthews and Warren Spahn." And Earl said, "I hope I get Mickey Mantle and Whitey Ford, Forky." Forky said, "If you get my Milwaukee Braves and I get your New York Yankees, do you want to trade, Earl?" And Earl said, "Yes, I want to trade, Forky. I want another Mickey Mantle card. And I have always liked Whitey Ford." And Forky said, "I think Warren Spahn's a better pitcher than Whitey, Earl." And Earl said, "Yeah, but he is in the National League, Forky, and Whitey pitches for the Yankees in the American League." And Forky said, "To each their own, Earl." Earl said, "You gotcha there, Forky." So the boys bought 2 packages of baseball cards each and walked outside and opened their packages and stuck 2 pieces of gum each in their mouths. And as they were trying to make it soft and chewing, and Forky said, "I hope I don't break a tooth, Earl." And Earl said, "That's nothing, Forky. The dentist told me I get so many fillings because of this gum. But I don't care. I love this gum. This must be what the baseball players chew." And Forky said, "You're probably right, Earl, But my brother told me they chew tobacco. And Earl says, "What's tobacco?" And Forky said, "It's what you smoke in a cigarette, Earl, only you put it in your mouth without that little white thing or that filter thing. And they chew it and chew it." And Earl said, "I'm going to stick with the gum, Forky." And so while they were looking for Mickey Mantle and Eddie Matthews and Warren Spahn and Whitey Ford, Forky and Earl chewed their gum and knew that life was good. Well, that's about it this week. Always be kind. There's no better way to be in this life. If you like our podcast, all I ask is that you share it. I'll be back next Wednesday. Peace out.